Hello, welcome to Jason the Old Millennial. My name is Jason, speaking to you here in my basement in the great state of Kansas. If you thought in my top 3 favorite albums that I was going to get a Beatles album in here, you would be correct, because number 3 on my list is Help by the Beatles. So stay tuned to hear my more thoughts on this on Jason the Old Millennial. Hello everybody, hope everybody's doing well. Here on a Thursday evening, and yeah, I come back to bring you another part of my series of ranking 100 favorite albums, or count down my 100 favorite albums of all time. Now at number 3 on my list, we're getting my top three favorite albums, and no surprise, it's a Beatles album. Like I said in my intro, yeah, Help, one of my favorite Beatles albums of all time. I don't know. Most people would consider this their top 3 as far as Beatles albums go. I feel like I hold that up in maybe higher regard than most do. I mean, it's obviously very beloved by any Beatles fan or casual rock and roll fan. Very influential, important album, I think, at this time. 1965 when it came out. This is their 5th studio album that they put out. Of course, charted number 1 in the UK and the US. Though the US version, obviously this also was a movie as well that came out. So the US version of Help is much different. The US version has, I think the first side is the songs that are in the movie, kind of like Hard Day's Night. Second side is more the soundtrack music, I believe. I've never listened to the US versions, only UK versions, of course. So still did very well, went number 1 both US and UK, of course, as Beatles albums do at this time period. It was also the first one to be nominated for Grammy Album of the Year. So that was the first for the Beatles to get an album get nominated for a Grammy for Album of the Year. Sorry. Fortunately did not win, which is crazy, but definitely we're starting to see a shift in mainstream music where rock and roll music's starting to get Grammy, because rock and roll music wasn't getting any Grammy nominations. Now we're seeing rock and roll music being more accepted amongst the older crowd, because Grammys were more of the older voters, and they were voting for, Frank Sinatra and Barbra Streisand. Judy Garland was like winning Grammys at this time and stuff like that. And so now we're seeing the shift where the newer stuff is getting in, because rock and roll was probably looked down upon by the older crowd at that time. But they get nominated here. And it's a first for a rock and roll band. It's first time a rock and roll band got a nomination. We're going to see that, sorry, in the late 60s, we're going to see more rock and roll bands get in there. In fact, we're going to see the Beatles win with Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band 2 years later in 1967, the first rock and roll album to win a Grammy Album of the Year. So it's definitely a big moment in rock history, I think, in 1965. We're getting so many great albums this year. I mean, this is really, to me, like the first year we're just getting some of the best albums ever. And a lot of it's because the Beatles coming in, the British Invasion, a lot of great British bands are coming in and coming up with debut albums this year. And also the folk rock movement is also coming out. So we're getting some folk rock albums as well that are really good in America. So lots of great stuff here. There's 2 big singles off here. I say 2 big singles. There's so many huge songs on here. But the 2 singles that came off in the US, because, well, it's, I guess US and UK. Usually the UK doesn't have singles off the albums. They have singles that are opposite of the albums. But we get here Ticket to Ride, which goes number 1, and Help, which also goes number 1. So obviously 2 huge songs off here. Very well known, very well beloved by Beatle fans. I thought Yesterday was also number 1 hit, though I didn't see it here, but I thought that was considered, I thought maybe they put that out as a single as well, but maybe they didn't. Kind of surprising, because it would definitely have been number 1. It's the most coveted song of all time and all that, and most played song probably of all time. And it also was number 266 in the Rolling Stones 500 albums. So almost halfway through the 500 albums. To me, of course, it should be way higher. I have it number 3 on my list. And talk a little bit about the Help album. Of course, like I said, the Beatles were the biggest band in the world. In 1964, they came to America on the Ed Sullivan Show, February 9th, 1964. We just passed the, 60th anniversary or something like that, or something, when they came to America for the first time. And of course, they had a #1 hit already with "I Want to Hold Your Hand," and they came to America, and the crowds were just crazy. When they came February 2nd, there was huge crowds greeting them at the airport. So they knew when they came that, okay, we were the most popular band in Europe. Now we're the most popular band in America, which means we're the most popular band in the world. Once you hit America, you hit the most important market, as far as entertainment and all that. So once they hit America and they became huge, again, screaming girls all over the place. They went and toured America during that time, and there's, huge crowds everywhere they went. And all their songs were starting to hit #1 at this point. And then they were, someone came along and said, "Hey, we want to make a movie with you guys in it." And they're like, "Yeah, let's make a movie," because they really liked Elvis, and Elvis was making his own movies at this time. And so they're like, "Yeah, that's what big rock artists do. They get to make movies, So they were real excited about that. So they made a Hard Day's Night movie and soundtrack to that, which was a huge hit for them in 1964. So they were doing everything, and they were touring. So it's like they were not only they put out 2 albums in 1964, Hard Day's Night and Beatles for Sale, both #1 UK anyways. Didn't come out, Beatles for Sale didn't come out in US, but there are tons of #1 singles also coming out during this time, and also making a movie and touring. They were just conquering the world at this point. Like I said, most popular band of all time, 1964. So we're getting to 1965. They signed a 5-year deal, a 5-picture deal, in fact, that they were going to be in 5 movies. So first one, Hard Day's Night. Second one, they came up with the storyline for Help, which was more of a adventure movie. Still, they're playing themselves, but this time, instead of just going to a concert, it's them on this adventure where this cult leader, there's a sacrificial ring, and it gets accidentally put on Ringo. And so then this cult leader is going after Ringo, believing that since he has a sacrificial ring on, that he has to kill him for his, cult god. And that's the whole plot of it. And so the Beatles are kind of on the run. And so the whole idea that they came up with was like, we'd love to shoot in the Bahamas. So they have a whole Bahamas scene, or we like to shoot, where else they shoot? They're in, I forget, they're in the mountains, and they're skiing, I'm forgetting where that was placed at. But anyways, they decided to go to all these different places that they would love to visit. So it seemed like just an excuse for them to travel to different places anyways. And yeah, the acting is terrible. The storyline is terrible. It's a pretty bad movie overall, but we do get some great Beatles music in there. We get some off-the-wall comedy as well. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And it's fun to see the Beatles, though. It's always fun seeing the Beatles on screen anyways. So it still was a hit movie, I think. Not as big as A Hard Day's Night. And I don't know if I wouldn't say it's as beloved as Hard Day's Night, but I think Beatle fans still enjoy this movie as I do. I still enjoy it, even though it's really stupid. Anyways, but it was first called Eight Arms to Hold You was the first original title of the movie. I think because of the cult god that they were, this fake cult was worshiping, had 8 arms. Anyways, I think that's why they called it 8 Arms to Hold You. Then this, John Lennon wrote the song Help, and it was, they liked it and decided to change the name of the movie to Help, which was a better title, and I think worked better overall. Plus, it's a great opening song to the movie as well, and fit the mood of the movie as well. Anyway, so that's how they came up with the movie. And they wrote, and Lester directed it again, Richard Lester. And this time the Beatles weren't as excited to make a movie, I don't think. Some things happened at this point. One of the big things was they really got into Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan was a huge folk artist at this time. Came out with Free Will and Bob Dylan, I believe, at this point. And they were really big on the Free Will and Bob Dylan album and really liked his writing style. And they ended up meeting Bob Dylan at a hotel. And Bob Dylan brought marijuana, and the Beatles hadn't smoked marijuana before. They were just taking pills and drinking alcohol, basically, to get a buzz or whatever. And but Bob Dylan thought they had smoked marijuana before because and I Want to Hold Your Hand. They said, I can't hide. And Bob Dylan thought they said, um, I get high or something like that. So he misheard one of the lyrics. Anyway, so he brought marijuana. They're like, yeah, well, of course, Beatles aren't, they don't mind doing drugs. So they're like, yeah, we'll try marijuana. So they tried marijuana the first time in a hotel room with Bob Dylan, and they got hooked on it. And they were definitely big marijuana smokers at this point. So when it came to doing a movie, from what I understand about marijuana smokers, they're not always, the biggest workaholics. They really just want to, chill out and lounge around and not really do stuff. And so the Beatles weren't very active in learning their lines or being on set on time and all these things. And so the Beatles, I think, weren't interested in making the movie as much. They just wanted to smoke marijuana and, chill out. And so you can tell in the movie that they were not given as many lines as Hard Day's Night, and they had a lot of other actors kind of carry the movie, I think, compared to Hard Day's Night, because of that, and which makes it kind of interesting. Anyway, but yeah, those definitely were big influences on them at this point. I mean, I think you can tell in the album itself, Help, it definitely has a different feel. I feel like it's almost a transition album between, it's starting to get, it's somewhat slightly not as big as Rubber Soul, I think, but a little bit of a transition album from, they're just pop rock days to then getting more into psychedelic rock, which come out pretty much later with Revolver in 1966. But we're starting to get, the songwriting is starting to change a little bit here. Just not catchy love songs as much. We're getting more introspective songs, and I think that's the influence of Bob Dylan. And we're getting, stuff that sounds more like what maybe Bob Dylan would be doing, or the folk rock movement that's coming in was doing. So we get a little bit of a change here with a couple of songs that are a little bit deeper in meaning. So I think songwriting has just gotten so much better with this album. I even think their overall playing has gotten better. The guitar playing is just absolutely fantastic throughout this whole album. The harmonies are absolutely amazing, like they always are. But I think even better on this album than the previous albums. They really did well in the harmonies. And I think the whole production value is better. They added some orchestra to like Yesterday. I want to hide. You've Got to Hide Your Love Away. They had like a flute in there. They got electric pianos in a lot of songs, and so they're adding, I feel like, more instruments into the music, more production value. It overall sounds better. They spent a little more time in the studio than they did on the other albums, which helps. All that. So everything's just getting a lot better, I think, with the Beatles. That's why I love this album so much. And yeah, I've always loved this album since I was a kid. I remember when I first got into the Beatles, this was one of the first albums I really got into. I think that's why it's still so high on my list since number 3. So I remember when I listened to this album when I was like a young teenager, or whatever, preteen, I guess, when I first got into the Beatles. I remember getting through this, and just each song, I just thought, wow, this is a great song. This is a great song. Like, it's full, every song is just absolutely great. I love that. There's 2 cover songs, but we are getting away from the cover stuff. Hard Day's Night's the only one so far that we had that didn't have any covers. It's all Lynn McCartney. Unfortunately, the other 3 albums we had were 6 cover songs, 8 originals. This is, definitely, it's definitely an improvement on that, where it's only 12 originals and 2 covers, and at least 2 covers aren't bad. One I think is actually quite good. The other one's like, I could be without it, but whatever. But definitely an improvement on like Beatles for Sale, let's say, which had some really bad covers on it. This was a huge improvement on that. But so we are getting to that where we're going to get away from covers. In fact, after this, we don't do any more cover songs. So it's going to be all originals. So, and that's where the Beatles are at their best, when they're doing original stuff, because the original music is just amazing. We've seen George also write 2 songs here, and George had only written 1 song at this point, Don't Bother Me, on with the Beatles, which to me was not a very good song. It's one of his weaker songs. It's the first song, though, he got to. Besides that, he's been doing a lot of cover songs, a couple of Lynn McCartney songs. So it's so awesome to see him put 2 songs together, write 2 songs on here, and they're both really good. So George is really starting to show himself as a good songwriter on this album, on the 5th album, we can see, and his songwriting just gets better after this. So it was really cool to see George really start to step up as a songwriter. And also as a singer, I think he does a much better job here. And Ringo, I think, singing-wise, this is the best Ringo song we've ever gotten, Act Naturally. it's a cover song, but it's a countryish. It's from a country artist, and it fits very well for Ringo's voice. And he does a very good job, I think, vocally on the song. In fact, the other songs that he's done has just been horrible. They just gave him some of the worst cover songs, I think, unfortunately. And maybe there's like one Lennon McCartney song in there. Anyways, but yeah, when I listen to this album, I just go, wow, this side one is maybe the best side one we've ever gotten on a Beatles album. It's just one incredible song after another on side one. Side two is also very good. It's got some more the weaker material maybe, but even then the weaker material is actually very good. Plus you get Yesterday towards the end, which is to me if you followed my ranking Beatles songs, that's my number one favorite song of all time. Yesterday, I absolutely love that song. And so, when you have an album that has so many amazing hits, plus you have my favorite song of all time on it, how could I not put this as one of my favorite albums? I had to. It's obviously a 10 out of 10 album. I mean, Help, great opener, really great rock song, really good lyrics. So John really he's going through a bad time, and he's really asking for help. Great back and forth between the lead and the background singers. Love that. Night Before is a very underrated song. I think a great Paul song. Really good vocals on there. You've Got to Hide Your Love Away. Another one of my favorite. You're talking about some of my favorite Beatles songs of all time here. And again, I think it's very Bob Dylan-ish of John Lennon, very introspective about, the insecurities that, after a breakup, whatever, and what happened. And very well there. And then we get I Need You from George. Great song from George. I love the guitar effect on there, and George really good singing on here as well. And then you get Another Girl, another good, really good Paul song. You're Gonna Lose That Girl, I think a very underrated song on here. It's in the movie as well. But man, great back and forth between John and then Paul and George singing background, and kind of them singing together different parts. So good. And then we end with Ticket to Ride. Ticket to Ride, another one of my favorite Beatles songs of all time. Just a great rock song, great guitar, great drums. Man, great harmonies, of course, throughout. So fun. Like I said, side two, Act Naturally, which I think is actually quite a good Ringo song. It's a good cover with Paul singing backing vocal or harmony vocals there. It's Only Love, I think, is actually quite good. I think a lot of people don't like this one. I think it's a really good song. Then the third song on side two, You Like Me Too Much. Another George song. It's not as well known, I think, but it's still a solid song for George. Like I said, there's not a bad song here. Every song is like really good to absolutely great. That's why it's number 3 on my list. Tell Me What You See, I think, is really good. Again, great piano, great harmonies. Number 5, I've Just Seen a Face. What a fun song. Very fast paced. It's only like 2 minutes long. And I think maybe some harmonies in the chorus there. But great guitar work. Love the intro. One of Paul's best. And then 6, Yesterday. Yesterday, like I said, one of the best written songs. Again, like I said, very inspired by, I think, Bob Dylan. Very introspective about the feelings. I think it really shows the feelings to me, of like having, I think of breakups, but you can think of anything where your day is going really bad and you long for yesterday when things were good. Such brilliant songwriting. Of course, the guitar, and then the orchestra music. First time we really heard orchestra music on a Beatles, and it's really a Paul solo song. None of the other Beatles sing on it or play on it. It's just Paul and the acoustic guitar, and then we get some orchestra music in there. It's very beautiful. I believe that George Martin wrote for the song, and it's just a beautiful song, wonderfully sung, very vulnerable in the lyrics. It does a very good job. Like I said, the singing is so good on this album. And then we end with Dizzy Miss Lizzy, which we all say the same thing. I know every time we covered this album recently, actually, on Jacob Martin's channel. We're going through all the Beatle albums, and this was the last Beatle album that we went through on Jacob Martin's channel. And we all kind of course, agree that Dizzy Miss Lizzy, we wish wasn't on the album, especially wish it wasn't Closer. Yesterday would have been the perfect closer. But, they're a rock band. I feel like they thought we can't end on a song like Yesterday. It's too mopey or something. And they thought, well, we got to put a rocker. So they put a cover song, Dizzy Miss Lizzy, from a guy named Larry Williams, I believe. And John sings. And it's kind of like, Twist and Shout or Money, That's What I Want. It's one of those kind of cover rockers, that John does a lot. And he's great. His rock vocals are great and everything. It's fine, guitar-wise. It's an okay song. It's just probably my weakest song on here. Unfortunately, it closes the album. And it's a cover song. you do kind of like to see them go away from cover songs. So it's unfortunate, but doesn't ruin the album. It's still an absolutely amazing album with, like I said, some of my favorite Beatles songs of all time. As a Beatles fan, I'll always love Help. And still's got, like I said, I love Help because this is kind of the mid period of the Beatles, in a sense that we're going to start going more psychedelic after this, and we're also going to go more individual, where it feels like the songs are more like solo material put together. While the Help is still during that time period where the Beatles still felt like a cohesive band, and they're still touring this stuff. So they're still writing songs, they're going out touring it. And I don't know, I just feel like they all really came together for this. The harmonies have never been better, and some of the best you'll ever hear. I mean, some great ones on Rubber Soul as well, and Revolver, you get some of that. But I don't know, it's just that period where it's like, wow, everything's getting better. The singing, the songwriting, the musicianship, and they still have that great pop sound to them at times, and they're doing ballads as well. You know, they're really kind of stretching themselves as musicians, and so that's why I always love this mid-period of the Beatles. I think they're really coming to their own. They're already so great at this point, but this is where this is where they go from a really good band to the greatest band, in my opinion. So that's what I got here. So then now I'll talk about my top 3 favorite songs on the album. So hard to pick. Like I said, so many amazing songs here, but if I'm going for top 3, number 3, I'm going for Ticket to Ride. Like I said, one of the great rock songs that they've done at this point. Love that drumming that Ringo does here. Proved himself to be a really good drummer, I think. And that opening guitar lick is great. And then the ending, My Baby Don't Care. Great ending there. And just just melody, everything is just amazing. John's vocals are great. Really love that song, Ticket to Ride, number 3. Number 2, I've got another John song, You've Got to Hide Your Love Away. Like I said, love the acoustic guitar playing. Love how he plays it. Dun 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 dun. Hey, you've got to hide your love away. Bum, ba, bum, bum, ba, ba, bum, ba, ba, bum. I love the way the acoustic guitar sounds on that. Love how he does the hey at the chorus. Really great chorus for John, and really great songwriting. One of his best songwriting at this point, and he'll get better with each album. He always has a really good kind of song like this, very more ballad, introspective type songs that John's actually gets really good at. You think I'm just a rock singer, but no, he can do the acoustic guitar stuff as well, and the more softer songs and love songs. And he does really good with songs about, breakup and heartache and stuff like that as well. So you see that here in this song. Really amazing song. Then number 1, of course, I already said Yesterday is my favorite song of all time. So it's here, and I already talked about it. Just a beautiful, beautiful song, and one of the most well-known songs of all time, most played songs of all time, for a good reason. They named a movie Yesterday, which is kind of a fun movie about the Beatles music in modern times, anyways. And a song that will always be great, no matter. They wrote it here in '65, and here in 2024, it's still a great song. It still works today as it did back then. That's a great song for you that never gets old. Anyway, so yeah, it's number 1 is Yesterday for me. So yeah, that's my 3rd favorite album, Help, from 1965. I'm almost down 2 more albums to go through. And so yeah, comment, what do you think about this album? How is it? Is it one of your favorites out of the Beatles? Or love to read any comments about what your thoughts are on this album, the songs, any of that anyways. And again, just thank you for coming. Thank you for watching these videos I've been putting together. Really fun getting to put all these albums and talk about them, do the history, research, and show my love for music anyways, and hope that goes through on these rankings. So yeah, thank you for watching these videos. Thank you for watching this one. Thank you for liking them, and thank you to all my subscribers for supporting the channel. I appreciate you all, and I hope you have a good day.